Cool. Let me let a couple other people in and then we'll go ahead and get started. As a reminder, this is a chat, right? So feel free to unmic. Feel free to, just engage a little bit and ask some questions. All right, I think everybody's in for the moment. Perfect. All the AI note takers. Okay. Awesome. Well, today, what we're going to talk about is just spring seasonals. We're going to discuss some options going into this beautiful spring weather and also talk a little bit about how to strategize when you're presenting spring seasonals and how to use that to your advantage. As we kind of move from this cooler weather into warmer weather, obviously not such a huge difference for us here in the South, because we've been getting warm weather here and there throughout the year. But people do tend to drink seasonally, right? So a lot of our spring seasonals and the seasonals that roll into summer are going to reflect that. So what I'm going to do in this meeting is just kind of talk about some of our most popular items, and also talk about some strategic times of the year during the next few months. Again, we're just now getting into spring, but a lot of our spring seasonals are not going to necessarily go all the way to summer. So there is going to be that area to think about and to strategize when you're talking with your accounts. So I'm just going to outline a few things that I pulled just to show you guys. These are not necessarily like the end all be all for spring beers necessarily, but these are some things that you can really utilize to impact your accounts and get creative as well. So I've got a mix of local, regional, imported, and then non-alc, and also some alt beverages, some things that your accounts might be looking to add this time of year. So first and foremost, let's talk about our locals. I mean, that's really where we have a great advantage in the market, right? We have some of the best local beer in Georgia under our umbrella. Creature Comforts being one of them, of course, obviously. So when we talk about spring, we have their spring, which is a Belgian wit that's out right now. That's their rotating seasonal. We also have Tritonia. With those, let's kind of talk about menu placements for a second, just real quick. And I'll bring this up throughout this because as craft beer kind of changes and shifts, I think it's definitely a different environment than it was a few years back, where you could sell whatever, whenever, and the strategy was just sell as much as possible, not necessarily being as creative with what you need to sell. And now that's really just part of our jobs, even more so, is just being creative, being thoughtful. So if you're doing a spring menu, for instance, there's a couple things that you're going to want to look for. One is going to be what it's listed on the menu as. So for instance, if Creature Comfort Spring is listed on your menu, that's going away in a couple weeks. You're going to want to make sure that if you have spring in an on-premise on a menu, you're going to definitely want to make sure that it says Creature Rotating Seasonal, right? So if you have something like that, you're more likely to keep that placement even permanently. Sometimes, and you guys know this more than anyone, like you're out there selling the beer, you're out there doing the thing. But sometimes these seasonals, especially from our local guys, they could brew a heck of a lot, but the market demands even more. And all of a sudden we're kind of a couple weeks shorter than what we forecasted. It's easy to kind of get caught up in the sales side of things, but think about the production side sometimes, where these ingredients are having to be purchased 6 to 9 months or more in advance. It's not like bottling up another batch of vodka or gin. It goes a little bit further because the product has to be created from total scratch. And there's just a little bit more thoughtfulness that needs to go in it. We can't just brew a new batch of Creature Comforts spring, like it would take 6 weeks to get the ingredients and 3 more weeks to brew the beer. And that doesn't even account for the packaging and the pickup and transportation up here to us at Savannah. So just something to think about. We try to do the best that we possibly can on the Beer Weekly, which is a great resource. Most of these items I actually pulled directly from that to talk about. But we try to tell you what's coming next, when it's coming next, etc. So as far as menus go, err on the side of seasonal, err on the side of this is the freshest possible. We just did that with a menu for a small brewery that just doesn't get a lot of beer to us. So instead of pigeonholing the customer or the restaurant into having this one beer and all of us kind of getting disappointed when either it's a slow shipping or, again, from scratch product that's made by hand, essentially. But so instead of putting that as a permanent menu item, we put in X brewery's freshest available option. So again, all about creativity. So the little beer cart, guys. Preacher Tritonia. This series should be a go-to when it comes to on and off premise placement. This is just a nice thing that you can stack right next to all your other creature comforts and toss in the cooler. It's absolutely delicious. New packaging on this as well, which looks fantastic. It's really eye-catching. This isn't like your typical, this goes a little bit further generally than like the spring. So this will actually hover between spring and summer. So that one's a pretty great one to add in. We have that in draft and in package. The Three Taverns Rapturous, which I don't have here right now, is also an incredible seasonal thing. It's year round. We know that's a year round SKU, but as far as people looking for something bright and fruity this time of year, that's the way to go as well. I also pulled the Sour Continuum. It's another great example of a rotating sour that you can list on a restaurant menu as a rotating sour. The peach and apricot is here now, and there'll be a new flavor that kind of hovers between that spring and summer again. So, again, thoughtfulness on that. Another thing to lead with on these spring menus or on these spring stacks is whatever's the freshest IPA. We've got Compass Rose down from Savannah here that I pulled. This is just a great example of a local owned, veteran owned brewery down in Savannah. The product's always very consistent. It's always very fresh. It's a nice one. And you give a little nod down to our friends down south as well. Another great one for spring, and I didn't just pull this for the flowery can, but it really helps. But Founder's Mortal Bloom, they have their regular Mortal Bloom, which is just a hazy IPA. And this one is 8% ABV. So a little higher ABV, but that Mortal Bloom branding kind of embodies springtime. They're actually going to go pretty heavy with the focus, the Founders team. So it's always good to lead with things that you also know that the local rep is leading with as well. It just leads to some good synergy. Another couple of things that I pulled are in the wit beer section. Wit beer and white ales tend to be excellent to drink in the spring. They're great year round, but a lot of people are looking for maybe that fresher, more kind of lighter flavor Belgian-esque style ale. So Creature Comfort Spring is one of those. So we do have that again for a few more weeks if someone's looking for a little pop-up spring, in your retail stores or on premise. Additionally, we've got Allagash Surf House, which is their summer lager, but this is going to kind of run in that same realm flavor profile wise or drinkability wise, I should say, to the Allagash Whites of the world and things like that. So this is an exciting seasonal that you can feel pretty confident about as well. And then back to the wits, other than the Allagash White, of course. This is a great one if you're looking for something that's imported, something a little different. This is a St. Bernardus wit. It's just very classically done and in a can, so it's priced pretty aggressively for an import. And then we also have Athletic Wits Peak. This is technically their winter seasonal, so it is going to be kind of phased out, and it'll be phased into Right Pursuit, which is their Radler. But if you're looking for some placements right now, particularly in retail where we still have a little bit of space and time, this is a perfect one. Let's see, and then next, let's talk a little bit about another import, Le Chouffe. So you guys are probably mostly familiar with this brand. There's a pretty incredible incentive going with that. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but Le Chouffe Blonde Ale, definitely the best Belgian blonde ale on the market for the price. It's very nicely, aggressively priced, especially on draft. We also have Cherry Chouffe, which is a nice, bright, fruity, beautiful with food. And then the Hopland Chouffe, which is more of their IPA. It's not quite as hoppy as we're used to by any means, but it does have that beautiful freshness. That's perfect this time of year. Do you guys have any questions so far? Let me look in the chat. Oh, it's just all note takers in the chat, you guys. It's all AI. Are there any people with any questions?
Not a question, but I had some success last year, and it's kind of off the wall. But if you have an account that likes things like this, they were using the Tritonia for a michelada recipe, and I went into the account and actually tried one, and it's freaking delicious.
That's a great that actually kind of segues into my next portion of the chat is, our biggest drinking holiday other than St. Patty's, which is coming up as well. We do have some Sullivan's beer in stock for anyone that's looking for something to hit that spot. But we also have a ton of Mexican lagers. There we go. Boop, boop. And some really good ones too. So I pulled Silver Bluff, which is not necessarily newer to our portfolio, but there's a rep up here now. They're making more beer. They're being more consistent. And we're getting the market support up in this area versus just the Savannah side. So lots of really good stuff going on with this. So that's a Silver Bluff Mexican lager. We also have Highland Cerveza. This is a lime infused Mexican style lager. Remember these guys went through a pretty tough time with the Hurricane Helene recently. So any love that we can share with our guys at Highland, they make incredible beer. It's always consistent, always really well priced. So it hits kind of all those marks as far as value goes. And even though the storm might be over and they're recovering, they're still really behind. So, let's try to support those breweries as much as we can going into the holidays as well. Outside of that, for Mexican style lagers, we do have a few that are coming down the pipeline, one from Pontoon specifically, Pontoon's been a great addition to the portfolio. So once that comes out, you'll see an email about that, but that'll be pretty exciting. And then we also have Stone Buenavesa, which is, of course, a more nationally known brand, but really, really well priced. Awesome tap handle if your accounts are into that. But perfect for whether it be menus, whether it be somewhere that's looking for a little bit of an elevated twist on the michelada, and want something a little bit different. And then we also have, it's not here at the moment, but we have the Monopolio brand, which is our only, true Mexican style lager. It is made in the Northeast, but it is the original Monopolio company from Mexico, and it is 100% Mexican owned as well. So if you're going into that Cinco de Mayo and looking for something, whether it's to pair with one of the tequilas that's on the Core 7 right now, or whatever you're looking for, or the michelada route, these are really great. speaking of micheladas, we also have a cider in our book. Of course, you guys are all familiar with that. And that makes an incredible michelada. Like it's very surprisingly delightful. So lots of ways to get creative for the holiday for sure. Speaking of creative, let's talk a little bit about some alternates. So again, whether it's Cinco, whether it is just the season, Crooked Al Tapache is a nice little piece of our portfolio that's different than anything else, made by fermenting pineapples, which is what makes it different. So instead of, apples for cider or malt for beer, they're using fermented pineapple. Super refreshing. Has a little bit of kind of what the flavors that you would get out of a sour beer, little bit of tartness, a little bit of bite, but it is quite delicious. And again, perfect pairing to merchandise beside some of your tequilas that you're working on or whatnot as well. And then we have the Two Pitchers Radler. This is a really unique company. There are samples of this in the GSM room. If you're up here and want to grab it, if you haven't tried these before, they're extremely well made. They're delicious, easy drinking, small company. They're not huge. They're not going to be out there, doing tons of activations and things like that. But if you do need them to come into market with you, let me know and I'll get you connected. But this Radler has blood orange and grapefruit, and it's a lager. This is perfect for this time of year for sure. They also have an incentive running right now. If you didn't notice, I pulled a lot of stuff that had incentives because I want you guys to have more ammo to make more money. And then next on the alternative spring offerings, just a reminder on these Noka RTDs that we have. So these are malt based, so they can go into any beer and wine only accounts. Something to think about with a lot of those other these other items here that can kind of play in that cocktailable area without actually having liquor in it. Noka is on incentive right now as well, and 'tis the season. I mean, whether it's a bucket special, getting these in a cooler or nice display, like people are starting to look. I think spring break for a lot of people is happening next week or in the next month or so. So, get after those case stacks where it makes sense. The shelf life on these is incredible. You don't have to worry about swapping out product. When you get a display, just snag it, keep refreshing it, and keep making that money, especially during this incentive time. So this is their boozy water, non-carbonated, lemon flavored, and this is their breezy tropical juice. It kind of tastes like fruit punch in my opinion. Super drinkable, easy to drink, all that stuff. Just going to check the comments real quick. This time flies when you are talking about beer and RTDs. Oh yeah, Gordon, good call. The Six Bridges Birdie Putt Pilsner, another seasonal, perfect for this time of year. Not only does it taste amazing, but it's, the branding is really fun and cute and very golf oriented. It's an Italian style Pilsner. And then let's see. Neat. Try the Crooked Owl Pina with Mezcal. Absolutely. Other than the Pina, which is personally my favorite, I just like a straightforward, have a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of fermented pineapple. This is definitely my jam, but we also have a jalapeno, which is a little spicy. And then we have the passion, which is passion fruit. So those are available as well. Quasar says, looking for St. Patty's beer. Best spring beer for C-store. Those are great questions. On the St. Patty's side, we only have one true Irish brewery. and that is Sullivan's, which we have, to be totally frank with you guys, have had I think I lost Joe. There we go. Be totally frank, we've had some inventory issues with, so hopefully we'll be able to build that up a little bit better next year going into that as well. As far as spring beer for C stores, I mean, Quasar, I would definitely say, take the opportunity with the core 7 beers that we have, the 19.2s. Tropicalia, it's for all year round. I mean, it's going to do really well. We also have Florida Man by Cigar City. It's not on core 7, but that's a good one. Higher gravity, more fruity as well. So that can be a good one for spring. Depending on your C store, I mean, some of your C stores are more craft oriented. Some of them aren't, but we've got a pretty great selection here of things that can kind of lean into that a little bit as well. When it comes to spring beers and you have any questions, make sure that you lean on your beer manager. All that information is listed in on the Who to Whom, first of all. So if you know where to find the Who to Whom on a drive, go ahead and reference that. And there's a tab that says beer teams, and then it'll say which DM coincides with which beer manager. That is the best way and the easiest way to get the answers you're looking for, and also to get somebody to work with you. If you want one of us to come out and do an on-premise presentation with you, or go to a C store and work on displays, or redo a cooler, or just walk a store with you and look for opportunities for POS and things like that, that is what we're here for. Most of us do manage brands, which is a huge part of our job, but the best part of the job is getting out in the market with you guys and actually making, a difference in the field. So please make sure that you are reaching out to us. If you have any questions about availability, definitely reach out to your beer manager as well. They can find the answers for you and get back with you. And then as far as just what's coming out next, what's ending where, we are doing 2 things besides the Beer Weekly, which is really important. And if you have a question before you ask anybody, you might be able to find it there. So we try to put the estimated times that things are landing. We try to tell you when that seasonal is. So like with peach apricot sour continuum, it'll say that this one is the one in stock now, and then in May through June it'll be another flavor. So Will does a great job of trying to keep ahead so that you know what's coming. Outside of that, we are revamping our seasonal brand calendar. So basically we are just collecting all the new brand calendars for this year and trying to make those available for everybody. That is information that's going to be reiterated in the Beer Weekly, but sometimes it's nice if you know that maybe you're working with Six Bridges and you want to see what their whole year calendar looks like. You can find that there. So I think that'll be super helpful. So there goes AI again. All right. All right, enough of that. Any other questions that you guys have about spring beers or what's coming? Yeah, okay. Outside of these lovely selections, we have our cider portfolio. Don't forget about that going into this year. Mercier cider out of Blue Ridge. Right now they have a blackberry bramble as well, which is really delicious if you want a fun seasonal pop. Otherwise, their mountain apple is kind of the go-to in their portfolio. We have our Ace lineup as well. We've got our folks from Long Drink. Those lean into kind of the spring break category. We've always got programming with them. There's always some sort of incentive rolling around that you can easily take advantage as we gear up for this busy time of year. Yep, Gordon, great call. Bravazzi. I just sent an email about Bravazzi today. We have their limonata in draft now. if you're sleeping on this product in our portfolio, definitely take some time, get to know it. There's sales sheets on the drive. If you need any more information, I'm the brand manager, let me know. But there's there's some incentives coming up in April that'll be pretty aggressive. So go ahead and start getting acquainted with the product and what we sell, and it could be super lucrative. It's also super delicious. So just to reiterate what I said in the email earlier, I mean, this is kind of a go-to, whether the account has liquor license or not. I mean, you can make cocktails with this using Italian bitters, using other, a beer like a Radler style, using gin or tequila. I mean, it's just such an easy way to elevate that sale, and it breaks down to under 13 cents an ounce, which cheaper than a lot of mixers out there, for the price. So definitely something to keep in mind as you're going into your spring sets. It's obviously also wonderful at your independent retail shops as well. And if your C-store is looking for something a little bit different, there's the variety packs, which I think are pretty great. We've got 2 different variety packs. But the packaging's beautiful. It shows well. We have plenty of opportunity for POS. If you need POS, reach out to me on that brand and I'll have it made for you. We've got all the digital assets. All right, guys, we've got about 4 more minutes. I'm going to see if there's any other questions. Maybe you guys can answer a question for me. I know it's been a kind of a slow January, February, but what is the consensus out there with your retailers and buyers? I feel like there's a lot of good energy going into the spring season. Are you guys kind of seeing the same thing? Are people still a little hesitant? Or are they getting excited?
Hey Joe, it's Nate.
Hey.
So my 2 big ones, they've did a whole revamp this year, kind of steering away from certain products last year. So they were focusing on spring and summer upcoming. So they kind of did a clean house. They looked at zero reports. So zero reports was a huge thing. If something just was sitting on shelves for over, I don't know, 4, 6 months,
Okay.
So there's room for opportunity for new growth for seasonal beers. I'm seeing, at least in the Johns Creek, Peachtree Corners area.
Awesome. That's great feedback. And I think we're starting to rotate out of kind of what the beer industry was a few years ago to what it is now. You guys have seen it, like we're getting, it's not that we're getting less beer by any means. People are just not throwing stuff out there and hoping it sells. Like people are, our brewery partners, a lot of it we're definitely encouraging from our side, but just being a little smarter about those LTOs, maybe not dropping 50 cases of something, maybe dropping 15, 20, seeing how it does, etc. Encouraging them to try things in their tap room before we put it in the market. There's definitely ways that we're trying to stay relevant and stay cutting edge without wasting beer or overextending our asks from our retailers, because I know that can get a little bit like that. Randy said it's getting a little bit better every week. Very cool. Sorry, I gotta move my phone. Alan, people still kind of sluggish up there. That's definitely interesting. And I'm sure, Alan, just thinking about your area, I'm sure once the lake season really starts to open up, it will hopefully be a different story, but that's great feedback, you guys. All right, 1 more minute. Any last questions or comments that y'all have? All right. Well,
Sorry, Joanna, I got one more. Excuse me.
yeah, come on.
A lot of questions lately about Maine beer. I know that we've had drops and then they're gone like within seconds or minutes. Most of the questions, though, other than inventory, of course, is if we're able to get any new options. A lot of people asking for, I think it was dinner.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So and what a perfect time to talk about it. So essentially the way we order from Maine is they offer us beer and we buy it. We don't have the opportunity to necessarily choose. We can ask, and sometimes we're able to actually ask, and they're like, oh, I might be able to slide a keg or 10 cases, which sometimes that does a little bit more. That's a little harder than having it at all, right? So with Maine, just something to think about. We're thrilled to have it in our book. We love having it. We did up the lunch half barrels. We doubled those. So we should have that a little bit more consistently. But it's a great question. And unfortunately, just due to their business and what they're able to offer, we can't really pick and choose. We kind of have to take what we get and offer what we have, you know, but good question. Awesome. Well, guys, I know we're all, you know, probably trying to get stuff done before cutoff and whatever the case might be. So I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And if you need anything, please reach out to me or your beer manager. And yeah, happy selling, guys.